using student interviews to guide classroom instruction, an action research project. So this is a similar article to the previous one where some math teachers are using interviews, one-on-one interviews with students to try to better understand what those students understand about math. It's from about 10 years later. This is from 1999 to 2000, and it's action research again. So it's teachers doing research in their own school environment. Their goal was to understand two big questions. One, do student interviews provide teachers with more detailed, accurate, and complete picture of children's mathematics understanding? And two, does this knowledge help teachers improve the way they teach math? So what they did was they created time where they could have one-on-one interviews with their K to 4 students, and they kind of rejigged their options time so that they could have it. That's their schedule. Anyways, then they had 2 one-on-one interviews throughout the year. And because they weren't looking at student outcomes, they were looking at teachers' understanding of students. They didn't look at the student grades or anything like that, although they did say that in 5 years they were going to reflect on that. So they would interview students and give them questions and try to suss out what they understood and what they didn't. And they found a lot of big positives. They found that teachers were able to identify which students were ready to go to the next level. They were also able to find students who they thought did understand, who didn't. They were able to recognize how many students rely on solving problems cooperatively with others, and they were able to find gaps in students' understanding there. Teachers were able to write better problems for their students, and they gained a sense of confidence in the children's ability to problem solve and found that they were more likely to give their students more time and space once they had their individual interview. So overall, a lot of really positive outcomes. Teachers benefited because they learned more about what children could do, and the children learned from the experience as well. So their summary was that an over-reliance on quizzes and tests doesn't actually allow you to learn about how your students learn or what they kind of understand. And in order to help children become better problem solvers, we have to be able to learn how they learn. They said that teachers can use interviews to construct a more comprehensive portrait of children. These interviews give children more feedback. Children take more risks during these one-on-one feedback. They find it easier to explain their thinking when they can just say it instead of write it. It's easier for teachers to assess measurements like attitudes, behaviors, problem solving, dispositions, patience, perseverance, things like that. So a really positive practice. Their next step was to go back 5 years from now, continue doing the interview process, go back 5 years from now and look at results over time for the students that had been interviewed versus the ones that hadn't. So I might actually follow up and see if I can find Larry Buschman's next research piece. I think that would be quite interesting. But for me, it's the second research article that talks directly about student interviews. And I was thinking about whether or not I do student interviews, and I think that in general I do. They're not super formal. I'm not like having my interview day, but I talk with the kids one-on-one about everything that they do. And I think that when I used to have the Genius Bar, my desk with a seat where kids can come and check in individually every single day, I think I did more. And now that my classroom's a little bit smaller and there's some restrictions around spacing, I'm going to need to think a little bit more creatively about how to do effective one-on-one interviews. But I think that is a practice that I'm able to do because of small class sizes. Okay.